Okay, and we're coming back without Moorhead, so this should be a pretty good episode. So
pretty good, top notch.
Pretty good. You know, we missed January. We're going to come back hard in February. So we got a special guest. So you know, we talk a lot of times about before the batons drop, and that's what the podcast is. And we talk about the things in the firehouse, on our experience in our training, the responses that we go on. But what we haven't really touched on yet is what happens when you have an emergency at your house. Right, you know, you could possibly have the worst day of your life. Your house is on fire, horrible accident. Your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, wife, spouse, kids, whatever, hurt, heart stop, CPR, whatever. And who are you calling? You're not calling us. You're calling 911.
You're not calling Ghostbusters.
You're not calling Ghostbusters. But you pick the phone up, you call 911, and who's answering? Because it's you're not calling the fire station. You're calling your dispatch center. Yeah. And those are people that we forget about in the response circle and stuff, and as first responders, because they truly are that first link in the chain when somebody calls 911. And today we have Wendy Hess, who's a longtime dispatcher now, our Woodbury County Comm Center director, is going to kind of talk about that, you know, where her beginnings and stuff, and kind of what we've done, but also maybe kind of talking about the emotional toll and stuff. I think to be interesting to get into is what you guys don't get to see. We get called, we get dispatched, we go to a scene, we do what we need to do, the patient gets transported, and sometimes we get closure on that because we'll find out, we get an end result of what happens with that patient or stuff. Or at a fire when everything's cleaned up and we go away. I mean, we get closure, we get into it. What we forget is that dispatcher, then they hear everything. We don't hear any PD traffic. We don't hear any county traffic. We don't hear any sheriff traffic. We don't hear state patrol. We don't hear any of that stuff going on above and beyond what we go on for responses, where these dispatchers do. And then as soon as that phone goes click, like that could be it. And for you guys to not know and just to be done. And that's something, you know, that I think I saw something on a TV show once, and all of a sudden it clicked and it made sense and stuff. And if you've ever toured the TSI or the dispatch center, you get a greater appreciation for what these people do. It's absolutely amazing. So Wendy Hess is here with us today. Also with sitting number 2, the man with the master plan, the guy that doesn't take leg days off nor rest days, just steaming and grinding around, constantly rocking the stash, Mr. Devin Shipper, legend in the making. And then, of course, with us always, not always, but filling in today in Ben's chair and stuff is the captain that needs no introduction, Mr. Dusty Johnson.
Hello,
Captain Chaos.
Thank you.
Yeah, if anything. So
I wish we had like a panther. That's what I think of when I think of Dusty. So.
Yeah, that's like, I tell you what, going to second shift, I miss out on Captain Chaos's stuff and everything. But I will be, I think March 7th, I'll go in the car for the second time ever.
Hey,
the first time was like nothing. I think we had one run, and I'm like this whole day just going like, what do I do with
Wendy's going to go back to Comm Center and be like, well, get ready for March 7th, gang, because it's going to be.
Do you have any vacation days built up?
Actually, I will be on vacation. Then.
Oh, hey.
Going to the Women's Big Ten tournament.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Well, who are you rooting for?
I just like to watch good basketball, but of course I'm rooting for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, naturally. Yeah. Hopefully they can pull it together by then, right?
No,
it's been a little rough
disaster.
Lately. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There you go. So Wendy, what? So kind of we're just gonna kind of start from the beginning, you know, and just kind of what we do with everybody, and we're just gonna have a good conversation and just kind of roll with it and everything. So, but really, I mean, where'd you grow up and kind of go to school? I mean, where are you from? You know, what's your background? Where's your roots?
Sure. So I grew up in Mobile, Iowa, so not very far from here, just down Highway 20. So graduated from Woodbury Central there. Went to college at the University of Northern Iowa, the Panthers. So lived for a while in Cedar Falls, wanted to come back here and be closer to my family, so that's how I kind of ended up here. My dad was a volunteer fire chief for probably most of my life, and so I had a great appreciation for public safety and law enforcement, firefighters, all that. Spent a lot of time growing up. He tinkered at the fire station and stuff, so spent a lot of time there. And actually, my dad was who told me about the job opening when I applied. He was involved with a 911 service board and that stuff. And so actually he's kind of the one who steered me in the direction of the job. So.
And what year was that when you applied for that? Because that was after school, after college.
Well, I've been
and
here
everything?
25 years.
Okay, so
if you can do the math,
and
I'm
go
not
backwards.
sure. Is that like
Okay.
1999?
So that's got to be
98, 99?
Well, yeah, 90, 98 maybe, 98,
Yeah.
99.
I think
right
I
in there.
started like
Yep.
January 98. Does that
Oh,
sound
that's
right?
awesome.
That sounds
Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so that's so long as I've been in it for a little bit and stuff. So yeah, that's cool. So did you?
What'd you study at UNR?
Yeah.
Marketing, actually. So
Really?
I had like
I was wondering if the path
nothing
was even
at
on.
all. Yeah, no, nothing at all. So I worked in advertising for a few years. Like
Nice.
I worked for the Waterloo Courier, selling advertising, and I am not a salesperson.
No?
It was okay, but it was not the job for
Needed
me.
to
so.
you're like,
Yeah.
this isn't gonna be it.
No,
Okay.
not at all. Not at all.
I lived in Cedar Falls quite a bit. Never went to school there, but
Just like
I
a
did
transient?
extracurriculars.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of hung out, just hanging around.
Just hanging around. Hanging
So-
around. Yeah.
That's actually where I met my wife.
There you go.
So
Nice.
I love that town. Love Cedar Falls.
Shout out Cedar Falls.
So Wendy, you'd mentioned that your dad had talked to you about the dispatcher job. What was that tipping point that you decided, like, this is what I want to do and go into?
I don't know. I think like my dad also worked for the county. He like drove a snowplow and stuff at that time in my life, I thought working for the city, the county, the state was just a great career choice, because it just, if you're looking for something that you feel like you can be there a long time, I really had zero idea what the job really was about, but like I knew the sheriff at the time, Dave Amick. And so I just kind of felt like I'll throw my hat in, throw my name in there. I really didn't think that I probably had much chance at the job because I had zero background in public safety. I wasn't a dispatcher that moved up through the ranks. Sure. I was actually hired as a manager. So
the connections probably, you probably knew all those people though, right? From growing up, kind of.
Yes and no. I knew a lot of the rural people growing up in Mobile, but like at the time, Bob Hamilton was the fire chief.
Yeah.
I didn't know Bob, and I had to interview with like Bob Hamilton, Dave Amick, and I can't remember who the police chief. Maybe Joe Frisbee at the time.
Yeah.
Sounds
it was
right.
Frisbee.
Yeah, but
Cool.
no, I didn't know them. It was very intimidating.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
So I mean, you went to school for business, like new dispatchers. Can you get a degree, I guess, because like you could get a fire science degree. Can you get a degree in emergency communications and stuff?
No, you can't. And some of our most successful people have really wide range of job history, education, lots of different things. So, there's no specific career path just to make your way up to being a dispatcher. But also it's, if there's people out there that are interested in like public safety and criminal justice but don't want to be out on the street responding, dispatching is a great opportunity. I don't think most people realize the computer systems that we have access to. I say like, on the criminal justice side, a lot of times the dispatchers are like the first detective on the call because they're digging in the system. They're looking for information on who people are and license plate numbers and a lot of things. So there's a lot of ability to really use your skills, use the systems that we have. If maybe you don't think that responding to the scene of something is what you're interested in doing.
I guess that's something to touch. I mean, the amount of information that you guys see that's not authorized for general public, because you say if pulling some of these plates, seeing some of these criminal records when you're pulling names and stuff and getting the information for the officers that are on the scene, it's not like they're reaching in their pocket and going like, you're telling them over the radio all this stuff. So you guys are privy to a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. And if you've ever been in the dispatch center for new people, it's a little overwhelming at first because it looks like NASA,
Sure.
It's like 8 computer screens and 2
spotlights
levels
on
of
each
stuff.
center.
And, so, and they can move things around and set them up how they want. But yeah, we've got access to multiple criminal justice computer systems, the jail's computer system. We can look up historical data. Even when you guys go to calls, we can look and see if we've sent you there before, or what kind of, what kind of history we have on an address and stuff.
That's crazy.
That's interesting to touch on too, because we've got a bunch of CAD updating we've done with our dispatching and how we receive it on our end. But it's just allowing like you guys to get even more information to us without even having to talk really. So it's kind of cool. And Fire Marshal Aesop was talking about that the other night. They'll be able to give us everything like, there's already a known PD problem here. Or, whatever it would be, there's violence in this home or whatever, just to give us another heads up.
Flex updating
usually
stuff,
we're going in blind to most things, no matter what. Even like the information you guys get is limited at best. So it's just going to be, I think it's going to be better over time for sure. So.
Yeah. And we can flag addresses, if we know that, that's a problem when, and we've got places that we've got flagged that, hey, if you send an ambulance there, send the police too, because, the historical, issues we've had. So. Right.
So can you kind of talk about what that dispatcher does then, or whatever, kind of like what a typical day or kind of their shift, what all, I guess, everything that entails for them, and then and how that kind of ties in, or why, into the emergency response. Like I said, I kind of feel like you guys, when somebody calls 911, you guys are that first link in that chain. So
yeah, a typical day, there's usually 4 or 5 people on duty. So very much in our county. So it's a countywide dispatch center, and we do everything: police, fire, and medical. Heck, we dispatch animal control. We manage all of that. So usually there's 4 or 5 people on duty, and they're kind of divided up with roles every day. So somebody's dispatching county law enforcement, the sheriff's department, Sergeant Bluff Police Department. Somebody's doing the rural fire and ambulance, which outside of Sioux City, most of that is volunteer. And then you've got somebody doing Sioux City Police main dispatching, Sioux City Fire and Ambulance dispatching. So everyone is also a call taker. So everyone's a call taker and a dispatcher. So when the phone rings, whoever's available answers the phone. It might be 911, it might be non-emergency. And then they question the caller, gather information, and that is all dumped into what we call our computer-aided dispatch system. And then, so the dispatchers have to determine, what kind of call it is, what the nature, whether it's a medical emergency, a police emergency, whatever. Get the address, gather the important information, put it in the computer system, and then depending on what type of call it is, it then basically pops up on that dispatcher screen. They pull it up and then dispatch the appropriate resources. So, we're lucky. We work in a big enough community that we have multiple dispatchers on duty at a time. But, we're surrounded by a lot of small counties that it's a single person show. And, even just south of here, like Monona County, there might be one dispatcher on duty. And we all know that on I-29 in Monona County, if it's a winter storm, there's always going to be a lot of accidents. And so that single dispatcher might be doing everything, talking to people on the phone, sending ambulances, sending fire, sending law enforcement all at the same time. But luckily, here in Sioux City and Woodbury County, we've got several people on duty. So, and they're really good about something big. We might have a big fire in the city, and then there's not so much going on in the county, so they kind of just distribute the workload. They pay attention. They're very good situational awareness. Even if somebody's sitting and doing dispatch county law for the day, they can hear everything that's going on in the room, so they can tell that the Sioux City Fire dispatcher's getting slammed, and they might need to jump in and pick something up and take over the workload, or do what they can.
That might be why we hear just like a few different voices.
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
of a sudden you're like, oh, that's not who was talking before.
Right.
Hey, what's this?
Right. Like the other day we had, it was you could tell somebody. It was, I don't know if it was a newer dispatcher too, and then somebody jumped in because it was like we had a fire going on, and then you had multiple EMS calls, but then units were redirecting to different places, and everybody pretty soon the dispatcher's like, where are you going? Where are you?
Yeah, for sure.
So
and it was, I was there
coming,
that day.
Yeah,
and,
it was coming.
Yes.
I think, you could tell it was.
We had a
all
little
this
bit
stuff
of
was
that
coming so fast.
We did.
It
sounds about like every day anymore. Almost.
Yeah, it does. But definitely, there's a newer gal training on fire, and sometimes it gets overwhelming, and you got to step in and just help them get caught up so that they don't get lost.
Well, if you think about really, like when we do even Blue Card or Blue Card Mondays and stuff, and how quickly when you're trying to do that and changes messages and stuff that come in. You're trying to, if you're like sitting the person in command that day and you're just like trying to make decisions just right here. But yeah, for that dispatcher to sit there and have, 4 ambulances going out and a nomad or a fight, like real quick, you could be like, and trying to keep track of who went where for what call.
Right.
I mean, I could see that real, if it's coming at you, because it's, I think it's rare that we get a call and then 2 hours later there's a call, and 2 hours later it always seems like it'll be quiet all day, and then that switch goes, and then it's just,
dude. At one point yesterday, we had engine 3 go into a smoke inside, and that was it.
That was the only
engine 3, and then
and there was no trucks for an elevator alarm.
No ambulance is available at all either. It got a little hectic. So when you work at like one area, let's say you work PD, how long do you stay like in the PD section before you rotate to like fire and EMS? Or
so usually most of our people work 5 days a week, so they sit there their whole shift. And a lot, it depends on the shift. Some of them like know that every Thursday they're going to sit fire, every Wednesday. And then the night shift, they kind of take turns, because some of them are like, I don't want to sit police main dispatch every Friday because it gets busy, man. I get overwhelmed. So it just depends. So they, they're cross trained in everything. Everybody's got their favorites. There's certain places that they would choose to work, and it's funny because it's all over the board. It's like I always tell people that I feel like the Sioux City Fire dispatching is very structured. There's a lot of direction. Structure fires, always these units are always dispatched, but police, there's just like so many variables, because no shoplifter call is ever the same. One might be no problem, the next one's fighting with with the loss prevention people and stuff. So it just depends. Everybody kind of has their favorite, but generally they sit there the whole shift. So
how long is the shift?
So right now, we have been short-staffed. We've just struggled since probably like mid-2022. It's just been really hard to get people in the door, get them trained before somebody else leaves. So right now our staff is working 12-hour shifts. Some of them are working like 2 12s and 2 8s. Some are working 3 12s and an 8. So they're working a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's long days for them, but hopefully they do then get an additional day off. So they're only working 4 days, but this is definitely temporary. We've got people hired, and once we get them trained, we'll get back. So normal staffing is 8-hour shifts. We do have like 3 people that work 4 10-hour days. That kind of overlap the other shifts, but for the most part, 8-hour shifts. And, we don't want people working so long that they just, people need sleep, they need time away, they need work-life balance. And so our normal rules are we don't let anyone work more than 12 hours. And then we also require that they're gone for 8 hours before they come back. So, but strange things happen, and, COVID and all the other different things that kept us, short-staffed. So, but for the most part, it seems to be going well.
Good.
Have you noticed, like, and we've seen it on calls, but like Friday the 13th, full moons, have you noticed any unusual behavior on your end? I
don't pay attention to the moons, but I participate in a few like dispatch Facebook groups where people are always like, it's a full moon or this and that, so I don't know. I feel like there's certain like changes of the seasons that are just busier. The weather starts getting warm, and all kinds of things come out of the woodwork. Saturday, it's like or different things like that. But who knows? I mean, I don't pay attention to when there's a full moon, but I don't know. So, ER nurses and everybody say that's a deep thing.
That's
so
where
it probably
changing
is.
of the tides, but it's also like changing of everyone's minds.
Right.
I think it's just when the weather gets nice
that's what I think
people
too.
come out of the woodwork, and then it just, especially like the beginning, early
everyone's
month,
electromagnetic fields get thrown off just a little bit.
Just a little.
It's science.
So when you talk about training, you got new people coming on and new people training. So what is the process? I guess what does the comm center's hiring process look like, and then the hiring process, and then once you are hired, the training to get to be a dispatcher. What's that?
So we're not civil service, like you guys are civil service, aren't you?
Yeah.
But we follow a process that's much like that. When we have openings, obviously we take applications. then everyone who submits an application is invited to testing. And it's a test from a company. It's called the National Dispatcher Selection Test. And anybody who's taken the test, there's like 4 or 5 sections. Listening, it comes on like a audio CD, and Human Resources administers the test. But, there's like listening and multitasking, and just, like some of it is you listen to a call and you can take notes, and then you flip the page over and you have to answer a bunch of questions about the call. So we figured that the people who do well on the test, it really is a good gauge if they're a good fit for the job, because it really does test the skills that they need for the job. So then once we do that, HR scores the tests, and then those that pass the test, then obviously our people have access to criminal justice information, so we have to make sure that they pass a background check. So we do a background check, probably a lot like police department does. So just making sure, we're supposed to determine they're of good moral character. So, we run their criminal history, we check them in the computer system, and check and see what, to clear a background check. And then they're invited for interviews. And then we make job offers there. Also, normal physical screening, drug and alcohol screening that most city employees have to go through. We also do a psychological examination, much like the police department does. And then once they're hired, it's about 6 months of on-the-job training. So we have current dispatchers that are training operators. So they are paired with somebody, so the new person is kind of their shadow for a while, and then slowly as they learn more, then they kind of flip-flop, and the new person is the one on the radio, on the phone, and the seasoned dispatcher is behind them listening in. So they both can plug into the headset, so they hear everything each other is doing. So like you said, when you could tell somebody jumped on the radio, so the seasoned operator can jump in, and sometimes you might just hear voices behind what sounds like whispers, so they're whispering, telling them what they need to do, or if they forgot to tell you something or whatever. So about 6 months of on the job training, just because it's kind of like learning 5 different jobs, fire dispatching, police dispatching, how we handle calls in the rural area of the county for law enforcement is different than in the city, just because it takes deputies longer to get there and different things. So it can just be a lot to learn.
So do you guys, with the county and stuff, do the county cars, do they have any sort of GPS? Do you know who the closest unit is to a call, or do you just know that this is so-and-so's district coverage area, and you dispatch
So we
them,
can look at the map and determine who's closest. Sometimes a high priority call, we don't take the time to do that. We literally, we can quickly tell who's available and send them, and then kind of like you guys, they'll jump in and say they're closer, and they'll head that way. But, there's times that it might be a big accident, and literally every deputy's going to head that direction.
Or like an all car.
Yeah. But yes, so we actually have 2 different mapping applications. So our Motorola Flex dispatch system has a map with squad cars. And then also law enforcement has a program through the DOT that's called MOC. So we can not only see our officers, we can see state troopers. In the winter, we can see snow plows. And so it's kind of handy that, so we can, like if we got an accident on the interstate, we could glance at the map and see that there's a trooper pretty close, and ask them to assist with it. So
6 months,
trying
on
to
the
get
job.
Mach put in my personal vehicle.
There you go. So I mean, but really, even after 6 months at Trace, I mean, you're talking a good probably a year, 18 months maybe before that dispatcher's pretty solid in that spot, or is it?
It's, you're always learning, and luckily we have, I would say probably half of our staff has been here 20 years. So there's just so much knowledge in the room, and so, you're constantly learning, just because things come up that you probably haven't dealt with, it's even when we're training people on fire, sometimes we're they haven't had a structure fire. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Sure,
we're
yeah.
not wishing for anyone to have a fire, but that's a learning experience to work a big fire.
Sure.
And, you know, like you guys had procedures that some of our staff has never done, you know, like recalled your staff,
Yeah.
like
Right.
a big fire incident, and we have to start calling people at home and get them to work. You know, I would say probably half of our staff has never participated in a recall because they just haven't had to do it. So
Well, if they work the same day as this guy does to my right,
there's quite a few recalls.
Allegedly.
we've had, I think, at least 3 recalls when I've been
probably
filling
the
in.
same dispatcher every time. They're like, why? Why me?
I'm
practice.
not working today.
No.
So we try to have really good cheat sheets, and you know,
Awesome.
obviously we have procedures, but sometimes making a simpler kind of checklist, like for a recall, you know, so literally where the person sits dispatching fire, there's a binder in that board about recall, you know, that's simple to follow because we've changed the procedure over
Sure.
you know, the years, and now it's like we call based upon, depending on it's a full shift recall or whatever, we call based upon the date, the day. Did you know we do that?
Right, with the
day.
So if we did a
Days
recall
alphabet.
today, we'd start with the person who's number 23 on the list because
right.
Yep.
we used to be starting at the top, and the poor guy with the last name A got
would get
called every
called
time.
every
Dave
Yeah.
Allers.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. It totally was.
Yeah. Yep. He's getting called all the time. He's like, man.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
every single one. What kind of turnover rate do you guys have up there? I mean, you just said you had like half years are over 20 years, but I mean, is that something that, you know, somebody gets into dispatch? Do you see that as I mean, do the people come in as a career and like they're set in there for 30 years, or is it just a couple
used to
years
be,
and they move on to something
you know,
else?
it used to be, but you know, times are changing. I don't know, you know, it's like there's people out there that say you should never be in a job more than, you know, so many years. You should be looking to move up and improve yourself and stuff. But there were a lot of years that we didn't hire anyone, that people came and stayed. We kind of have been looking at some data lately because it has been a struggle, and we're like, why can't we,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, HR kind of pulled some numbers for me, and they're like, most people, if they get past the 2-year mark, they stay a long time. So I don't know, it's hard to say. I
Yeah.
feel like, you know, my age of people, that was just our mindset. We found a job that was a career that we expected to spend our whole life there, and I don't think that with younger people that I'm sure a lot depends on what career they're in, you know, but I feel like the younger generation, that it really isn't that mindset anymore. I don't know. I mean, firefighting's slightly different. I mean,
Yeah.
you feel like
I mean, to me, it's like the security is a huge thing because you guys have a very secure job if you get that job. And I don't know. I never thought of it from a different aspect, I guess. Like, if I was like single and just wanting to move around the country, that'd be one thing. But like I knew what generally
the
you
other
kind
thing
of have
too
an
is
idea what
we
you want to
don't
do.
have a ton of opportunity for an advancement.
Sure.
You know, you guys have a lot of levels and promotional opportunities, and you know, we're a pretty simple department. We have so we have communications operators, which are the dispatchers, and then on each shift we have lead operators. So there's 3 people that are like lead workers, working supervisors, and then it's the operations supervisor and the director. So there's not a lot of, you know, opportunity to really be
To advance,
promoted
yeah.
and advance
Yeah.
within the profession. So
Maybe it's just a matter of
that's
like
some of
people
it.
don't, you know, I think our job still, because, you know, this generation they kind of chase the dollar, and they chase they need something that gives them purpose, you know, and fulfillment and stuff. So, you know, our job where you get that, you know, you serve a person. So I think you could still lock into that career, and there's room for advancement and promotion stuff. And maybe it's, you know, for you guys that just people not knowing what a dispatcher does, or, you know, and to really say like, no, this is, you know, how much purpose you still can have answering the phone. But I don't know what, you know, I think it's across the board with a lot of things in our profession, you know, as far as pre-hospital emergency service stuff. I think it's just
I think you
just
just
a
said it
struggle
there
anywhere.
too. Service. That's
Yeah.
a service career, and I don't know if that's a popular thing anymore. you
Right?
know?
Is that
It's
that ability
service
or
is
that
self-service
want
anymore, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
to, yeah,
Which
versus
whatever. That's what's been taught, whatever you need to do, you chase your dreams, you know, whatever that may look like. But like you said, the monetary aspect and like, it's me against the world kind of right. I think maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, and I have mentioned this before to people, you know, I feel like when people are with us for a while, we have a great relationship with the fire department, the sheriff's department, the police department, and our people feel like they're part of something much bigger than just our department. So I think that is a huge help to keeping people too. You know, it's like a couple years ago, the police department did this like yearbook, and they included our staff in that. And that just says a lot because really they're not employees of the police department, but for them to be included in that. So I feel like anytime your agencies reach out and make them feel like they're part of it is just a huge thing because people want to feel like they're part of something important and more than just the dispatch center. Being part of this whole public safety thing, I think, is really huge and gives people a good feeling. And, you know, we got a lot of dispatchers that I can tell have created friendships with some of the responders out in the street. And I think that definitely too plays a role in them staying and being a part of it because they feel responsible for you guys, you know, for you guys out on the street, you know, and then feeling like they know you just totally adds another layer to that, I think.
Yeah, where they'll get used to tendencies of certain shifts or officers or whatever the case may be. But like, I think we need to start having like citywide safety meetings.
I think so too.
And dispatch-wide safety meetings, you know.
So, you know, if they're the first link in the chain, they should probably come to a safety meeting.
I think so too.
Lock it up. Let's go.
So there's going to be some really rewarding aspects. You know, there's always that flip side. We know there's that flip side. But when you start seeing some of these new people come in, they take this job, they really learn all the aspects of it what do you think are like some of the real rewarding aspects of being an operator? And
I don't know. You know, it is helping people. And, you know, it's sometimes though, you know, I say to new people, you know, like it can be extremely rewarding, you know, helping people, but most people don't call back and thank you. You kind of just have to know that you did, you know, but there are strange ones. Like I had a guy call a while back that one of the dispatchers helped deliver the baby over the phone, and he wanted to know if he could get a copy of the recording to like save for his baby. So cool. Like it was like part of like his child's history, so cool. You know, so, but you know, most people aren't calling us to thank us for what we did, or they're calling because they're having a really crappy day and they're not very nice on the phone. You know, it's like even minor stuff, like you get an offender bender, you're super stressed out, you're kind of angry with the dispatcher, you know, so it's like, yes, there's a lot of fulfillment of helping people, but there's a lot of stuff you just gotta kind of let it go. You know, it's like you gotta remember, it's not you they're mad at. You know, they're having a really bad day, and it's the circumstances. So do what you can to try and make it better. So I don't know. Asking what's rewarding, that's a tough one.
I think getting into that, it's kind of how we have to look at things too on our side, is like you're out there helping people whether they want it or not. Sometimes like that's what you're there for. So
and two, I sometimes think we're there to help the people that can't help themselves. You know, we get a lot of calls that are you know, people who really don't want help but need help and need it, and so you know, there's a lot of mental health issues in our communities, and you know, we get the calls of the family members whose family member is making suicidal comments or different things like that, and you know, sending them the help they need, and I know you guys go on a lot of those calls too, because you know, people call 911 because their family members in a crisis, you know, because that's all they know how to do. So
what are some of the, you know, you kind of touched on already kind of recruitment and stuff, but what are some of, as far as not just the challenges, not just as an operator, but you as the director and stuff that kind of you face kind of on a day, and then also if you could touch on it, and I don't know if you've seen trends as far as like calls and stuff different, and I use COVID as an earmark, and I hate using COVID, which is just say 2020, but because I think as far as on our side and just what you see in the news cycle and everything, that the calls and the nature, and even Sioux City in general, I think post 2020 has changed as far as what we see and what we hear a lot more, and the calls that we go to, that I don't remember going to or seeing. It could just be because of sheer volume, but when I started in 2002, I think just the city is different. But I kind of like, I guess so, kind of like the challenges and things and trends and stuff like that you've seen over your career and everything that have kind of changed.
So I feel like the start of COVID, like, it wasn't as busy for a while. Like, I don't know. I felt like maybe we didn't have as many medical calls. Were people afraid to go to the hospital and just were staying home sick? But I would also say over the last few years, our call volume definitely has not declined, but I think our priority call volume has definitely increased, So, like, I get texts on my phone of priority calls, like stabbings, shootings, armed robberies, things like that, just as awareness, so I know what's going on, There's probably not a day that goes by that I don't get one of those. Yeah. And I don't feel like that used to be, but on the opposite side of that too, I say to my friends and family, it's not a community that is full of random acts of violence. I don't think people need to be afraid walking down the street that they're going to get stabbed or shot. Most of this is targeted violence, but I feel like in the medical calls, I don't know. I don't feel like 10 years ago we ran out of ambulances on a daily basis,
Especially like for, how do I want to word this? High priority calls. Let's do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you said, I feel like definitely since I've been on, the amount of advanced levels of care needed on calls have gone way up. Mm-hmm. I mean, so the other comes with that as well. Yeah. But I feel like, like we're intubating people more than I ever thought, before, like that kind of stuff. It's like you said. It's
so what do you think? Do you think like our community is aging and people?
I think population change, probably a little bit more demographic differences, but I think it's overall health is not good either. And we're seeing that at earlier ages now too, for the medical side for sure. Mm-hmm. I think just people have done some really wrong things, but whether to their own fault or not, and now they're experiencing health problems that they probably shouldn't have been experiencing until later down the road. But that population is probably our biggest group in Sioux City right now. So I think that's kind of
and I think, like you said, the high priority and then the opposite. So like you said, running on ambulances. I can't when SPI, because you guys used to do dispatch for SPI? They had their own dispatchers, didn't they?
They had their own in the beginning. Yep. We used to. When we would send you guys on EMS, we just call them on the phone and they'd send. Okay. Then it transitioned to us dispatching them, and then transitioned to Sioux City Fire taking over the ambulance service when they closed their doors.
And they would have like a day car that would do the cancer transfers and things like that.
I don't think they ever had more. Yeah.
I think just 2 ambulances
by
on the
contract,
street.
weren't they required to have 2?
I think they had to have 2, and then they might have called a crew in to take like people to Omaha or something like that. But even with the 2 ambulances, but even
services.
because they would do P assists and stuff like that. But even with that though, I don't remember them. It wasn't very often that they didn't have an ambulance available. Where we were calling someplace else, and now we'll staff 4 ambulances, even with Med 5, we'll staff 4 and we'll still get no meds and stuff. So I think, Ship, I would agree that to me, like, overdoses, like way more overdoses than I ever remember running
rippled
on.
Into our
is the one thing
now.
Is the overdoses. I do think, like you said, the priority, some kind of priority calls of whatever nature, medical, whatever. But I think what also then ties up the system is it seems like to me now is people are replacing the ambulance, calling 911, replacing the ambulance with going to urgent care.
Mm-hmm.
Or just taking ibuprofen and staying home and being sick for a day. And then that's tying up an ambulance so that we run on ambulances when we do have the priority calls or something. And maybe we're just, because of that, we're more hyper alert to the priority calls. I don't know, but it's, when
ER people
volume
are telling us that there's no beds in the hospitals. People are sitting in a room in the ER for days. So obviously
my
they're real.
So otherwise they wouldn't admit people.
Right.
So
So when we started, our calls per year were probably 5,000 to 6,000.
I was going to say maybe 6 or 6,500.
Yeah, now we're pushing 10,000 to 11,000 calls.
I think,
we're just short of 12. And now we're going to be over
so
12
twice as many
year.
than when we started. So, you see it. But like I said, I just think, I don't know. And it's a trend everywhere and stuff. But yeah, something happened or something changed to, like you said, to get. It's not like the city grew. It's not like we doubled in population or even the county doubled in population. But to double in run volume when we're still running all the same EMS calls we did before from 20 some odd years ago. But it's
Do you think
crazy,
that people's mindset is like, I grew up, we weren't calling 911 or an ambulance. Somebody had to be dying. I mean, and I don't know if that. But obviously, the hospital's admitting these people, so they have a legitimate medical, reason to be in an ambulance.
I think if I had the answers, I wouldn't be sitting here for sure.
Right,
I'd be somewhere else. But
yeah.
I think it's a combination of everything we've been talking about, and definitely people call for everything now because. Well, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to call.
Well, and honestly, sadly, we will have people call us, and they essentially know that they don't need an ambulance, but they don't have money for a cab. Yep. I mean, people will call us and say, I have an infected foot. I can't walk to the ER. I need an ambulance. And unfortunately, in our community, that's the only resource that we have to send them. Yeah, we don't have, some, just community med, vehicle driving around that can assist people. So, and it's frustrating for us because we know we're sending an ambulance out on a call that really doesn't need an ambulance, but unfortunately in our community, that's the only resource we have, And the other thing too is we sometimes get calls for something that they really want a non-emergent, like a facility wants somebody. So like maybe they're at dialysis and they're not, and they're like, well, they don't really need an ambulance, but the non-emergency transport isn't available. So 5 minutes later, they call back on 911 and decide that is what they need because there is no other resources available. So
and that's the thing, we're always going to show up.
Right.
And we get a lot of that where, some of the facilities and stuff will try the non-emergency service, and then they're told one thing, and they and the facilities are trying to do the right thing, and so they call the non-emergency service. They're not available. Like, well, we can't get them for 12 hours, or we can't get them there until tomorrow, or whatever. So then they call 911 to get them transferred. What happens at a lot of these facilities, though, is they have so many travelers anymore, or their provider is like a teledoc from California or something, says, you need to go. You need to. Well, they just say they need to get seen by a doctor, or they need to go to the hospital, but they don't say like emergent right now because you have to go to the ER right this. They just say you need to go to the hospital. Well, then what happens is the facility, because they don't understand that we have a non-emergency service and a 911 service. So they end up just calling 911.
They're using the ER as an urgent care.
Right, but they're just calling 911 because that's all they were told. They said, the patient needs to go to the hospital. Yeah. How do they get to the hospital? By ambulance. They call 911, and that's a 911 service, not the non-emergency service. So the facilities that have people that work here and understand it, they'll try the non-emergency first, but then end up, they do call 911 for things that it's really a non-emergency transfer.
My wife worked as a nurse up at Mercy before she is at a clinic now. But so I'm trying to think, like people can't get in to see their normal doctor because their normal doctors are so busy now too.
Yeah.
Where like even from the time when she started at her clinic, like doctors are seeing over 30 patients a day, like, and there's 12 providers at her clinic. I'm like, that's crazy, like. So I understand someone not being able to get into their doctor and then being like, well, I got to go see a doctor somewhere. So I'm going to call the ambulance, or I'm going to call,
just so I can get somewhere. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know what, like you said, if we knew the answer and could figure it out, then we probably wouldn't be sitting here doing this. Right. What about some like critical decision making? How much like does a dispatcher stuff to an operator get to, like how much critical decision making and figuring things out, goes on with theirs? Is a lot more than just, answering the phone, clicking a couple things and letting everybody else do stuff? Or are they like, I don't know, I guess coming up with a game plan at the same time too?
It just depends on the call. A lot of stuff's pretty straightforward and there's procedures for it, but there's always different things thrown into the loop. I'm trying to think. I know yesterday I was overhearing a call that fire was asking if the scene was secure, So it's absolutely, you know, they have got to ask a lot of questions because scene safety is so important, you know, or just determining what happened to then determine how many people need to go. So, you know, probably on the law enforcement side a little bit more than on the fire EMS side, you know, but just, you know, you get a real feel for how people talk to you on the phone. I mean, sometimes you're like, it sounds like there's more to this, you know, like I don't feel like this person's being really honest with me about what's going on, or, you know, and so sometimes, you know, we just, you know, tell the other dispatcher, hey, I think you need to send 2 officers to this because something just doesn't seem right, or, you know, so, you know, it's their job to ask all the questions, you know, don't make any assumptions, you know, and pass that information on so the responders can make, you know, educated decisions on what they need to do. So
have you guys, she keeps talking about PD, have you guys ever, like on a Friday or Saturday night in the summer, just turn on the PD channel on the radio and just listen? Oh man, like
even the PD call log page.
Oh, it's crazy how much like you guys like on a Friday or Saturday night they're running, PD's running all over town. You guys are constantly like keeping track.
There is so much that goes on in this town that most people just are unaware of,
which is good for them. Like,
yes,
that's how.
And we kind of track our call volume. Like every month, we kind of do a report of like hour by hour, you know, and it's kind of like. Mid-morning, 10, 11 o'clock, things just start to ramp up, and it just gets busier and busier and busier, probably till, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Then it starts to wane off a little bit, but, you know, it's kind of that midday, it just probably the call volume almost doubles, you know, from the overnight to,
like I said, they get so much more that we don't hear. I mean, we could be having a quiet day, but PD or the county's like super busy.
And then, you know, I talked about
that makes these guys busy.
Well, and because they're call takers and dispatchers, they might be dispatching you on a medical call, and they're also on the phone taking like a domestic disturbance and updating, you know, that call and stuff. So, you know, they don't get to focus on, like sometimes I have to tell firefighters, you know, if the dispatcher didn't answer you right away, you know, you get to deal with just your call.
Right.
They're dealing with all of the calls. So if they didn't answer you right away, it might be because someone's screaming in their ear, you know, on the next call they're taking or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's like everybody should go and spend, you know, just go see the comm center and to get a better appreciation for what they do. Just so we do get that appreciation and that understanding of like, it's very impressive when you get all those computer screens and they're paying attention to all this stuff. And if it's busy in there, we need to just have some patience.
So
sometimes
we're fortunate at Threes because we always take our new people out there just to see it. And every time we come out there, I'm like, dude, this is insane.
Yeah.
Because I'll be talking to a dispatcher, like having a normal conversation, and she'll switch over to PD and then have to switch over to fire and then go back to talking to me on a conversation we were having. I'm like, that's
seamless.
insane. Yeah. If I could have that kind of communication skill, like with my wife, it'd be like rainbows and butterflies every day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm always amazed at it though.
Do the operators, do they get, you know, with dealing with unruly, you know, callers and stuff, do they get any kind of training for that, any verbal judo or anything like that?
Hang up.
Yeah. I don't think that. Is that an option? Is that in the little flip book? Be like, when they say X, Y, and Z, like just hang up. Click. Just be done. Call back when you want to have a better attitude.
Okay, I'll get right on it. Click.
Doesn't work.
No, you know, most of it's just customer service. You know, it's like, don't raise your, you know, the more excited you get, the more excited somebody else gets. So if you're trying to get somebody to calm down and focus, you know, using their, you know, some of the things that we train is, you know, use their first name, you know, and then, you know, say phrases to them. So example is like a medical call. Somebody calls in a medical emergency and they are hyped up. They are excited. You know, what a lot of people say to us is just send help, stop asking me all these questions. And so we try to get them to understand, I'm going to ask you a few questions, but somebody else is sending the ambulance while we're on the phone.
Sure.
And then try to phrase things. So I'm going to ask you a few questions so we can help your family member before the responders get there. So, you know, but people get frustrated. They just, you know, they want help now, and then they don't understand how the whole system works. But too, we sometimes have to remind people of that because they think that us asking all these questions is somehow delaying the ambulance getting there, and it's not at all. So,
absolutely.
When you get, like, let's say we have a large scale fire, hazmat incident, where you get a lot of people calling it in, how many people do you usually get for something like that? Like, hey, there's a big fire or something like that. Do you just get totally pummeled with phone calls?
It depends on where it is. Something on the interstate, a ton of calls, or something that's super visible, if they can see smoke or whatever. So it just depends. It depends on the time of day, how many people are out on the road, and see things. But, it's not uncommon for, somebody slides in the ditch on the interstate to get, 10 calls on it, But usually then once responders arrive, then people see that somebody's there, so they don't need to keep calling. Yeah.
My favorite type of caller, you ready for this one? Yeah. Is the people that call in like structure fires. And it's like the one person that called it in, and they didn't stop or anything. Yeah, they're just like, yeah, there's a fire at this place. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What'd you see? Well, I'm not there.
Yeah, I'm not. Like, they were just driving by. Well, that's what I was gonna what's that phone call like when somebody calls in and be like, where they call in just an odor, like, I smell a strange smell in this area.
The kind of smell that smells
like,
smelly.
And they're the only caller, and then we go out and have to investigate an odor in the area.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Rolling with the windows down really fast.
As I said, not to say that the dispatcher might be rolling right, but what's that call like? Where somebody just calls in and be like, yeah, I smell something.
I love that always. And we've only had one call on this.
Right. Okay. But you hate you don't want to.
No, you can't discredit.
Avoid discredit anything because that one time that you do, there's a huge gas leak and the city's about to blow up.
That's why we gear up to everything, right?
Yeah.
Because we get there and we're like, there's 3 floors of fire. Oh.
Yeah. In fact, I just took a call the other day. It was in an apartment building. I don't know if any of you guys were on shift, but I'm trying to add, she's like, there's a smell. And I'm like, does it smell like rotten eggs? Do you think it's gas? Well, while I'm still on the phone, she's like, oh, never mind. It's just my neighbor's stove. And I'm like, well, the fire department is still coming because your neighbor's stove shouldn't smell that bad. You shouldn't be smelling the gas in the hallway.
Yeah. Love that. Oh, never mind. It's all good.
Yeah.
So you kind of talked about your, you got the CAD system and stuff now, and we got the Flex now as we're getting in the station. We're going to get, when we get our MDTs and stuff, our actual, whatever
computers.
Surface or tablet and stuff, and that's going to really change things on our side. The iPads was a huge thing in using Active 911, which Wendy has been a huge asset and help with doing a lot of that stuff.
Now I've got to push that off to somebody else.
Yeah. But Wendy was instrumental in helping me get that going and stuff with everybody. She kind of, so the dispatchers, I try to relate to our people, like, they don't know it's even, the comm center doesn't know it's there.
Right.
It's all on the backside. Wendy's the one that puts all the stuff in and does whatever, and it just operates in the background, so they don't even know it's there. But as far as technology, what else, what's super awesome that you guys have, and then how have you seen it change, I guess, so far in your career? It's got to be quite a bit, because you didn't, it wasn't so much like that there's the pull and plug in and plug out kind of thing, but when
I first started, cell phones, when they called 911, it literally came to us on just like a non-emergency line. There was no data and now we can pretty much locate somebody who's calling 911 on a cell phone. There's other technology out there that we use. One application is called Rapid SOS. And so actually, like the Apples, the Androids, these companies, they must somehow fund Rapid SOS because it doesn't cost us anything, and it actually plots people on their cell phones faster than the state's 911 network. So we actually in the dispatch center are looking at multiple maps. We're looking at our Flex CAD map, and then we also have this Rapid SOS map, and then a few other cool features in Rapid SOS. If you put like emergency contacts on your phone, like whether you have an iPhone or Android, or emergency information, that will be pushed to us if you call 911 on this Rapid SOS application. Wow. And so I tested it. I put in like my emergency contact. You can put in like your home address and stuff. And the only time that information is accessible is if you do call 911. Mm-hmm. We can't just like look up your information at any time. But let's say, you guys have kids, if your kid got in a car accident and called 911, or maybe they have the fancy iPhone that has crash detection and calls, they're unconscious and it calls for them, that information will show up like emergency contacts. And it can even say like Dusty Johnson parent and a phone number and stuff like that. So there's some cool things.
That is cool.
That is super cool.
And then I don't know, do you guys know what 3 words is? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay.
What 3 words?
What 3 words? So you'll have to look it up later and look up at it. So there's a company in the UK that has taken the whole world, and I think it's divided into like 10-meter like sections, and each 10-meter has 3 unique words. And we can type those 3 words into our Rapid SOS map, and it will pinpoint it. So actually, I have been talking with Ryan Collins and Tom DeMont and the Parks and Rec people about the bike trails that are coming out into Cone Park, because when you get somebody's going to fly over the handlebars and have a broken collarbone or a cracked head, and you guys finding them. So we're having discussions about this might be a great time to use this application, because you guys could, like on the iPads, you could download the What 3 Words application. And when you're going to a call, we can tell you these are the 3 words for that location. You could put it in, and it will pinpoint them.
At least that 10 meter by 10
meter square.
So that's kind of
whatever meters are.
Because right now we use the Gaia,
Sounds
but
like a
we
bunch
need
of gobbledygook to me.
But with that Gaia, we need the GPS coordinates. So unless
like latitude, longitude.
Yeah. So unless when you guys are pinging, see the location, unless you're getting the lat longe, and then we have to have the lat longe in the right format to put in the Gaia, and then it'll take us there.
Sure.
Or but this to be able to, like, if you could just 3 words in the lake,
For
at least
trail
it narrows.
system, that'd
at
be
least it
awesome.
narrows
Yes.
it. Or
Because that trail
down to,
system
like,
within 10 meters, you're going to be able to be right.
Yeah.
where- If they're somewhere near
So
the
it's
trail.
commonly used like in Arizona, where there's a lot of
Sure.
hiking trails and
Yeah,
stuff,
that
and
makes
people are overcome by heat and different things. So kind of just in the infancy stages of us utilizing it here. But we've had some rural calls in weird areas that don't have an address. Somebody's out fishing at a pond, or we've had people, farmers having medical emergencies, and they're in a farm field that can't be seen from the road, and so some of those. So that could be also a huge advantage to some of our rural responders. If they had this application, and then we could send them the 3 words and help them locate somebody.
Could you do that with like the river? People boating have a boating emergency.
Maybe.
I'll tell you what, that would be.
Yeah.
Because that's one that usually
so
throws
bad.
us for a loop too.
I mean, they
they're
have the river markers, like 737,
But
whatever.
there's just
and-
only
but
so
the-
many
but the-
landmarks
but the
out there.
people, like,
It's like,
okay.
They
the
don't
people
know
on
their
that.
boat would be like, I'm by the big tree.
I can see Sioux City.
I'm by
I can
rocks.
see
I can see water. I'm by rocks.
a house.
and they're moving so swiftly.
blue-
I mean,
yeah.
they might be
Yeah.
by the train bridge, and by the time you get there, they're
Yeah.
way further
Down
south.
to Dakota
so,
City.
Yeah.
yeah.
But at least that would narrow the thing down. That's pretty neat.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
neat as heck.
So
That's
something we're just working on implementing, but hopefully by the time the bike trails get open, like in May, we'll have a better handle on how we're going to do that.
3
So,
words.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
nice.
I'm
And
dumb.
maybe with that, and maybe with that, at that point, we should just take we're coming up just on an hour and stuff, and maybe take a short 5-minute break and come back and kind of get back on things.
Yeah.
All right, let's go out. And we're back. We are back. We're back. Back with Wendy. So we kind of talked about technology and stuff. So let's kind of get into the real meat and stuff and some good questions.
I got one thing.
Yeah.
In the intermission, Rick Schroeder says hi to everyone on the department.
Oh, Dancing Rick.
Dancing Rick.
My man, Dancing Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just living.
Is
Just
he?
living.
Love that guy.
Having a
And
ball.
living.
Yep.
Yeah, Dancing Rick's though. He's a
you
good dude. Yeah, we like Dancing Rick.
It was, how long are those things? I said, a couple hours. Man, I don't got that kind of time. You go, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
put it on.
And you don't have to listen to it all at once, okay?
Yeah. Listen to parts, put it on the background, clean
Yeah.
the house, mow the lawn,
Yeah.
barbecue
Dance.
some stuff.
Do whatever you
Dance,
do.
Yeah. Maybe we should add a music track for Dancing Rick, just for Dancing.
Maybe Dancing Rick
could be
needs to
arranged.
make an appearance at some point.
I think he's gonna now.
Maybe Dancing Rick should be introduced to Barista Bailey.
Yes, and they need to have a dance off.
Oh my goodness.
I was gonna say pants off, dance off, but probably not.
No.
Well, Derek's just get shorter and shorter every skit. It seems like
That's just because
what's going on.
Just keep getting bigger. That dude's he's
Anyway,
dude's,
I
he's getting
digress.
some gains. So what's something, Wendy, that you wish, I guess, as far as education towards the public stuff, what's something you wish like somebody knew prior to calling 911 as far as how to make it, how to properly make, I guess, a good 911 call? Because, if you get somebody that's full on panic, and like you said, you get the ones that are like, just send somebody, just send help, just send what, my wife takes calls at UPS and somebody will just call literally like, where's my package? That's what she gets. Where's my package? Can we start with it? I don't know the address. I don't have a tracking number. I don't have so I mean, what's something that I guess the people should know before they call 911?
Help me help you.
Yeah, help me.
Well,
help
and I
you.
think I kind of touched on that too, is, us asking a lot of questions is not delaying any response. We want to do what we can to help you and help them while the ambulance is on the way, especially on medical calls. We can tell somebody how to do CPR, how to control bleeding, deliver a baby, whatever we need to do. And the questions that we ask are only going to help the ambulance and EMS people be more prepared once they get there. So that's probably the biggest thing is, we ask a lot of questions, but it's to help you and it's not delaying anybody getting there.
What's kind of like something that maybe a misnomer or like that's not a real thing that people like, I mean, like you said, we kind of touched about the 911 or calling with a cell phone, if I call 911 from my cell phone or from my house, like, does my address automatically pop up? Do you know exactly where I'm calling from? Or is this something like you still have to tell us where you are?
Right.
Or do you see all that,
Yeah, anymore, most people don't have landline phones. Some businesses still do, but I would say the majority of residential customers have dumped their landlines and, are just operating with the cell phone. So no, we don't know your address. We can try and find you on a map. But, if you're in an apartment building on the 3rd floor, we might figure out, what address you're at. But there's a lot of places within that building you could be. So, no, we don't know where you are. I think the other thing a lot of people don't know, text to 911 is available. But as you can imagine, gathering information from somebody over a text is extremely time consuming as opposed to a voice call. But it is a huge benefit for the people that maybe have a hearing or voice disability because, we're required by federal law to also have the telecommunications device for the deaf, the TDD. But that's not how people that are hearing impaired communicate anymore with their families. They have a cell phone and they text them. So that is also available. So kind of our message on that is call when you can, text when you can't. It's just really hard to get, in a text conversation, you feel like you have to ask one question at a time. But on a voice conversation, you can kind of rapid fire a lot of questions. So, if somebody's in a situation where making a voice call would put them in danger, they can absolutely text 911. But same thing, we don't have a pinpoint of your location. We need to know where you're calling from and where you need help.
Do you just literally send a text to 911?
Yep. We're in a really unique area because depending on where you are in the city, it could end up in South Sioux or Union County based upon our geography here. So if you do try and text 911 and it's an area where the service is not available, you'll actually get like a kickback message that says service is not available, make a voice call. But all our surrounding areas have the same ability.
Do you guys have the ability, does Woodbury Comms do anything with like a social media or anything like that they would monitor? Just as an example, cell service goes down for whatever reason, the internet, you still have Wi-Fi, you could get a Wi-Fi connection on your phone, but like Android, because droids don't have the ability, like an iPhone does Wi-Fi calling.
Right.
An iPhone iMessage still works through on Wi-Fi.
Right.
So even if you don't have a cell signal or LTE and stuff, you could still send messages out. With an internet connection, then like if you had a Droid and stuff, do they have like a Facebook message or anything like that that Comm Center would monitor that you could still get a message out if you only had an internet connection?
We do not. If we ever have any kind of outages, we kind of rely on emergency management to send out messages, but we don't have a way of receiving something. So no.
Do you guys have access to the iPod system? Or is that just the EMA?
We don't. EMA has it. There's times where you kind of have to say the dispatchers can't take that on, because there's a lot of things out there that departments would like the dispatchers to do. And sure. So that whole, and they have an alerting system that they can send out messages. But if we need something set out, if there's a 911 outage or something, we just partner with them and reach out to them to send something out. So.
Okay.
I know you kind of mentioned it too, that when you have a call is placed to 911, you have the rigs being dispatched or whatever units are while you're collecting info. I think most people don't understand like how fast you can get people responding to their address. Do you have like a certain like time frame that you shoot for? So
we have some performance measures that we shoot for. Obviously, fire and medical calls blow those out of the water, because our performance measures are a priority 1 call, which is any life, safety, property call within 2 minutes of receipt to dispatch. Well, I can tell you that on the fire EMS side, that's probably more like 15 to 30 seconds, but law calls are lumped in with that. So we continually meet our goal of under 2 minutes, but there's times where it's a priority police call and we got to get somebody cleared from another call to get them there. So sometimes it kind of brings down
Sure.
the average. So the other thing that we've really struggled with is this new software system, this Motorola Flex. So let's say an officer is dispatched to what we believe is only a property damage accident, and they get on scene and say, hey, this person needs an ambulance. They're having some, discomfort or whatever. So then we send you guys. Well, the system isn't, I shouldn't say that. The system isn't smart enough to know the fire EMS response wasn't requested until this time. It takes the time that the property damage call came in. So those response times look bad, but in reality, when you dig in deeper in the weeds, it wasn't because really the fire EMS response wasn't created until it was asked for. So I'm struggling a little bit with the current system, polling that data and making sure, because I sometimes scroll through the list and you can't look up every call because in a month's time there's so many thousands of calls, but try to filter them by some of the worst looking times and then look at those and see why it looks like it took 34 minutes to dispatch the ambulance. Well, it's because an officer was on scene for 30 minutes before they asked for it. So
yeah, because that Phoenix system for us really increased, where you guys get a call and it's like, I'm having trouble breathing, boom, and we're like, we're getting the dispatch before we even hear your voice.
Right, and a lot of times we're like,
out the door.
We're still getting more information because it got dispatched so quickly, and depending on where it is, you are there within a couple of minutes before you even finished all the questions.
I've been on scene before, like even come back for the patient info. We're like, what are we walking into? We have no idea.
Sure.
Yeah. So being a dispatcher and the director and stuff, but how has that changed your perspective on safety, kind of in emergencies and whatever? How's it affected your personal outlook on life too? Because for the rest of us on the street and everything, it kind of it hardens you.
Absolutely.
I mean, because you see things that people shouldn't see or the general public doesn't see, and you experience emotional things and all that stuff. So I mean, it changes you over time, and I can't imagine that being a dispatcher and stuff, and just because you're hearing this stuff, you're not seeing it, but you're hearing it. So your mind is almost more of a more powerful thing than what your eyes can visually see.
Absolutely.
So I mean, and you again, you kind of you have some insight into that because your dad and stuff and growing up. So I mean, but what's kind of your perspective, I guess, on everything?
I think, and it's probably the same for all of us, we're much more aware of our surroundings than our friends that are not in public safety, and we are much less trusting. Like I've got some friends that, they believe and will, trust everything. And the other thing I think is, I question everything, and I want to know why things, and my family is completely irritated because I ask questions about everything, but that's what we do all day. And so it doesn't stop, when we go home. But, I think we're the people now that when we're driving down the interstate, we're paying attention to what mile marker we just went by, because the general public is not doing that. They have no idea. They, we're like, did I even drive by Ottawa, but we're paying attention to those things because we know how important knowing where you are is. So
sometimes you wish you could be that person that's just like,
it's funny you say that because I do the same thing.
I don't even give a care.
Pay attention to the mile markers.
Right.
Some people might consider that hyper vigilant. I just think it's normal now.
Right.
You should know where the exit is. You should know
where's your exit point? Where
am I going
Where's
if
my
this
quickest
happens?
egress? How many windows? I don't know how many times I find myself like,
how far am I away from the exit in my hotel?
Extinguisher check.
That kind of thing.
Or like
how many doors is
our
it?
cops, they always have to sit in a restaurant so
Facing
they can see the door. Yeah.
I'm a psycho about that too.
Same.
Yeah. But no, it does. It changes you and stuff. So so let's and building on that and stuff. So how do you what do you do or how do you do it? Do you guys do? We have our peer support team. And I know, this last calendar we did the thing and stuff, and we've reached out and we've kind of partnered, and then our peer support team is available to the dispatchers that has been utilized in the past and stuff. But do you guys have when new people are coming on, do you guys have any type of that kind of training or talks about that stuff or how much of that kind of stuff do you guys and do you talk about good stress relievers and coping mechanisms and stuff? How much of that training and
we
stuff
do, and I think in the next year or so we'll work on developing our own peer support team.
Awesome.
Or at least getting some of our people trained, because we've definitely relied on both you guys and the police department. I just went to some training. I don't know if you guys remember. So there's two former Sioux City, well, I think there's more than two, but two former Sioux City police officers that train in, Andrew Duttler and Kevin Erickson. Yeah. And so they actually just put on some training. South Sioux PD hosted it a few weeks ago, and I attended that, and we've had them, when Duttler was still on the police department, he came out and did some training, and actually, we kind of did it all together. We had, Nikki Eaton with Siouxland Mental Health. We deal with her a lot. She kind of leads the mobile crisis team. So we had her come out and talk about dealing with callers in crisis, because some of the feedback I got from our staff is when somebody calls in and they're suicidal, what kind of things should I talk to them about or avoid? Because I think we all have this fear that I'm going to say the wrong thing that is why this person is upset, and put them deeper into a crisis. So had her come and talk about, things, to talk about, and it's really just having a conversation with somebody. And then also had talk about dealing with your own crisis and dealing with crisis calls and how you should handle it. And at the time, firefighters, Oregon, McClure came out and talked to us about peer support at that time too. And I think, the mindset has really changed over the years. It used to be, we didn't talk about a call unless it was like a quadruple homicide that was completely, crazy and, involved a lot of people. But I think, now just, we need to do more training for all of our people so that everybody understands it's everybody's job. Peer support is everybody's job, and looking out for each other. So we appreciate everything both the fire department and police department have done. You guys know that if you get on the scene of a crappy call, that it started with us and the things that our people heard, So,
we're all going
so
through
we
it.
appreciate you guys reaching out and sometimes just showing up and coming out, because sorry, I get emotional when I talk about my people.
You're fine.
But they're amazing. They do great things, but then they also question if they did enough or if they did things right. And so sometimes they need to know what you saw when you got out there, because I think, there's some calls where they did everything they could, CPR instructions and stuff, and it's hard to save a life. You guys know that. But then them knowing that, you know, when you guys get there and like, you know what, this was an impossible
It was beyond our
situation
reach,
and everything you could do, you know. So, and then, you know, the things you guys, you know, things everybody sees on the news, you know, there was that horrific call down by Hornick that our dispatchers dealt with. I don't know how long ago that has been, you know, but then they just question themselves, you know, they play everything over in their head, and, you know, so just getting together with people and talking about, you know, what they did, and then just reinforcement from the other responders that they absolutely did everything they could is just things that they need to hear.
And maybe that's something we can do a better job of, is calling up to comm center if we get, you know, if we do get ROSC on scene, because you guys hang up and that's it, done, right?
Sure.
And we forget that's, you know, when they're calling and you hear, because we show up, and if, you know, the wife is screaming in the background, you know how traumatic the scenes are for us.
Oh yeah.
You're hearing all that prior to us getting there, and then as soon as we get there, you know, they're like, okay, they're here.
You might not be physically seeing it, but you're seeing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you imagine in your head is
worse.
actually worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And
but then
calling to get some closure would be.
and then you have to give like, oh, hey, you know, you did a great job. We got ROSC back. We got into the hospital. They were talking about, you know. So I think we should, you know, maybe make it a point and do some on some of those bad calls to call up and say, hey, whoever was, you know, just to let you know what happened. Just
and
because,
that's definitely a two-way street. You guys can call us anytime too.
But then too, you know, they're on to the next call. You're on to the next call. Sometimes, you know, it's just like.
I think that would be. I think that would drive some. You know, if somebody isn't mentally fit or doesn't have good coping mechanisms to not have that closure, whatever, and just to always constantly question, like, you know, and just to not have that, you know, I think that would eat on somebody.
But then I've got other people that, you know, they're fine. They don't need to know.
Some people don't personalize it, and that's a big thing too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like you feel like that connection with that person because you've established a relationship where they're relying on you and you're relying on them through the phone for this many minutes now. And that's not like a lot what we get. Sometimes we just show up and try to solve, like, just fix a physical problem where we're not having that intimate, like, talk. Like, I need you to give me someone, and I need this information from you. So there's a lot of give and take with you guys, you know, emotionally. So
absolutely,
I get that.
Yeah.
So what do you have any, like, what do you have for hobbies? So what do you do to blow off stress and stuff? I mean, what's your go-to?
You know, I work out. You know, I used to run a lot more. You know, actually, back in the day when the comm center was down at police fire headquarters, actually it was myself and Marty Riley and Brian Thiele used to run over the lunch hour.
Yeah,
you know?
I remember seeing you guys do that.
Yeah. So, you know, and so I have friends outside of work. You know, I don't. You know, as a manager, I love my people, but they're not my social circle, you know. So, you know, I have friends and family. You know, my dad lives in a care facility here in town, so I spend half of my time visiting him. But yeah, so.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think it's a big thing to separate, for sure. I have friends that aren't even from this world, you know, that it's good to talk to and hang out with, just so I don't have to talk about.
You don't have to
the
talk
job
shop.
or
Because like you know, you get fired.
We get into
together.
pigeonhole where like we start going, can you believe this? You know, it just always works its way in somehow.
But then they always want to ask you, like, what was going on at 19th and Pierce last night? I'm like, I have no idea. No idea.
No clue.
Not my pig, not my farm today. I was off shift.
Yeah.
You know what? Someone said, all my friends that aren't in this are always like, well, at least we got a firefighter paramedic with us. And I go, I'm off the clock. You're going to have to call someone. Just joking, because I don't even. Whatever.
No, not going to do it. So. Any kind of, going back to your career, any like real memorable or impactful calls that you can remember? I mean, everybody's got to have like that one or two that. Like,
I think too, and they're always the sad calls, you know, and that's and for. There's always like one call that sticks with you, and like I don't know that we ever really know why it was that one call, but I took a call. I'm thinking it was around the holidays a couple years ago, and a older gentleman had found his son, actually, like they lived on a farm outside, and he had he had killed himself. And because it was in the rural area, I needed to stay on the phone with this guy until somebody got there, which was a considerable amount of time, you know. And while I was on the phone with him, he told me that this is his second son that has killed him. Yeah, it was awful, you know. But then you almost feel like you're talking to your dad or like a family member or something, you know. And so like I feel like that's always the call that kind of just has stuck. And it's been several years ago, but it's like
that's another thing people don't realize. Like, we're expected to do these things and show up, but we're therapists, we're friends, whether we want to be that or not.
Right.
That's what people take us as dispatchers and first responders and stuff. That's what we are, and that's what the public expects of us. So whether you want to do that or not, that's just part of it, you know. And we got to do our best in the moment for sure, but then we're like, man, I need to talk to someone sometimes. But yeah, that's another thing people don't usually think of.
What are you most proud of your career?
I think that so our communication center is the only communication center in the state of Iowa that is accredited.
Wow.
And we have been accredited since, I want to say like 2017, 2019. There are two other agencies that are working on it, Westcom and West Des Moines, and actually State Patrol Communications are working on becoming accredited. But it's a lot of work, but there's also a lot of, a lot of checks and balances. You know, an agency that's accredited is constantly looking at how they do things, and just a process of continual improvement. And so I absolutely will tell anyone that we have the most highly trained professional dispatch center in the state of Iowa, probably in the region. And one of the reasons is because we're accredited. We have policies and procedures in place on how we handle things. We are constantly looking at how we do things, and we give our people the tools to be successful. And we're in a unique community where our fire department, our police department, our ambulance service, and our communication center are all accredited agencies, and we can be very proud of that.
There's only I think it might be up to 10, maybe 12 now in the whole United States that have that level of accreditation. So everywhere. So yeah, when you talk about like the professionalism or whatever that we have here, I mean, we got the receipts to kind of show.
And that's the only way that works is if we're all on board.
Absolutely.
Well, in Comm Center, like that was a big difference, a change for us to go to that ISO 1. Also, for the fire department to get that rating is what Comm Center is their capabilities and stuff. So for us to be the first ISO 1 in the state of Iowa, the only other accredited ISO 1 in the region, Sioux Falls being the other department stuff. So within the region, and we're the only one in Iowa that's got accredited ISO 1. So I mean, we do a lot of things, but a lot of that comes from the work that Comm Center does and your capabilities and stuff. So it's impressive. It is it's something to really be proud of, that people, other areas or regions and stuff, other dispatch centers and stuff should be looking at Sioux City and stuff.
Absolutely.
And how they operate.
And a few years ago, there's somebody who worked for the sheriff's office here that left to take a chief of police job on the other side of the state, and he contacted me because they were in the process of hiring a communications director, and he wanted some input from me on interview questions. And during the conversation, he said, I never realized how good I had it until I went somewhere else. He's like, not all comm centers are the same, and there is a much different level of service in different places, and that was a huge compliment to our people. So definitely.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. So every now and again, so most of your time is spent kind of in the office now, right? And so, but you still get on the phone every now and again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you still is there a mantra or something? Is there like a routine like you do to get yourself ready for, either just to go to work on the phone for that day, or just, if you got a call that's coming in that you feel like this is going to be something bad? Is there something like a little prep work or something you do to just, get yourself ready for that?
No. And I love filling in, and working the radio, working the phones, mostly because I just like that time with my, if I'm in my office just doing administrative things,
Right.
I mean, it's fine. It's work that needs to be done, but I really enjoy even, there's times I might come in on the weekend or something or on a holiday, and it's just enjoyable working. They're fun. It's fun. They're fun people to work with. It's not all doom and gloom, yes, there's a lot of, chaos and stuff, but usually there's some downtime and we chit chat and laugh and, have a good time.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun place to work too. It's not all just,
Right.
Yeah.
I know that when we've stopped out to Comm Center with our probationary personnel, just in that short time that we get to see some of your operations, the amount of people busting each other's chops, it was just like, yeah, we're home now.
Yeah,
this is
perfect. Yeah.
We speak the same language.
yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
Not that much.
makes it fun.
It does.
Yeah. Any kind of advice that you give to anybody looking at it for a career or looking at a career in well, like you said, instead of if you want to be surrogate in emergency services but don't want to be on the street, but anybody else that's kind of looking at wanting to be a dispatcher or get into emergency communications, any advice for somebody or how to do it?
The other thing too is, if anybody is interested, we welcome people to come in and do a job shadow and come and sit and get a feel for what we do. And actually, I didn't think to mention that, but if we offer somebody a job or before we offer somebody a job, we actually have them come in and sit for a few hours because, there's people who, they've seen,
Sounds good on
they've
paper,
seen,
right?
they've
Or
seen
TV.
some TV
Looks good on
shows and,
TV.
and so it gives them an opportunity to sit with a dispatcher a few hours and really see what the job is like. And two, they can then candidly ask questions to some of our staff about the work that we do. So, it's every day is different. I think that's what makes it exciting. And like I mentioned too, just being a part of the public safety criminal justice system, like I mentioned, our people are detectives and they're looking up information. The other thing too is, so all of our phone calls and radio traffic is recorded, and routinely those recordings are used in the prosecution of cases. So specifically phone calls. So the dispatchers asking the right questions on criminal type calls in the beginning a lot of times are used as outstanding evidence and help put somebody behind bars that deserves to be, because
That's awesome. Yeah.
I go to court a lot just as the custodian of the records to present those 911 calls during trials, and the questions they ask are just a firsthand account of what happened. And a lot of times I'm there with firefighters and medics because it might have been a homicide or something like that, and that information is crucial and so it's kind of cool to see it come full circle. It started with a 911 call and now this person's going to prison for what they did.
Sure
So
the bad guys go away.
it can be pretty cool.
Yeah.
There you could look at as one of the rewards of the job.
Absolutely.
You get to see a closed loop there at least. Sometimes it might be a couple years down the road.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Side note, HBO Max, Real Time Crime, season 2, episode 10, second half of it. Check it out. Might feature Sioux City.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess and say Phil was a part of that.
I was not. No, but you can see it in the security footage. My brother-in-law, not Paul, was like in the security footage at Mercy helping out there. So that's why we found out about it. But no, the Real-Time Crime.
Craig?
Was there something just on this week?
It must have been. It's a 2024, so it must have just came out and stuff. So
because I heard some police officers talking about.
Seen that too.
I don't remember. The call didn't.
Yeah, because it didn't come to 911 because it was a shooting.
Oh, that showed up at the hospital. It was a shooting that
they just got dropped off at the hospital.
You're right.
And then Mercy called the PD to have somebody come.
What year was that from?
This is 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2021.
They've had so many people dropped off at Mercy shot.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool. I was like, it's Sioux City, and there's some good aerial footage. I'm like, the only thing they had in there, they were talking about the PD's like research center, technology center, whatever. It was the EOC that they were showing.
Right.
Well, because we had a request.
It looked like super cool, but it's like that's EOC.
Well, because there was a request that they were looking for a play, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just video the actual place instead of? Apparently, they want to make it look a lot more exciting.
And it did. It looked like I said, it looked super cool on
that'd
the
be
show.
Worth talking about too. Is our emergency operations center. If S really hits the fan, then that's where we set up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, during my tenure, I've seen it, activated a few times, mostly just floods. We've had some pretty insane flooding. So, but it is I have learned through my career that we live in a unique area where everybody gets along and works together. It's not like that everywhere across the United States, so, having departments that collaborate and work together to get through disasters is kind of...
I think that's the Midwesterners in us too, kind of, right? Like we take care of each other, and that's our motto.
But, to be there during the flood and have, everybody from Public Works and Mid-American Energy and, making a game plan, how we're going to do things and,
and I guess now that we're on it, how does an EOC activation look like from the comm center standpoint? Do they get it designated as EOC if it's busy? It's like when the floods first started, that place was operational. Do you dedicate somebody over there, or
we've kind of changed our tune over the years. So when that EOC was originally built, we included in the EOC room a fully functioning dispatch position. But after we've been through a few activations, we've realized is that they operate better in the room that they're in, a little bit isolated with not a bunch of people around. So, but we have the ability somebody can be over in the EOC and actively monitoring what's going on over in the communication center. Like one of the last things I think of, do you remember when we had that tornado in December? Was that 2 years ago that knocked down a bunch of power lines?
Yep.
I don't think in the city there was a lot, but out on Highway 20.
Yep. Overheading towards Lawton.
Yes. Just east of Lawton, high power lines shut down Highway 20 because they were on the ground and stuff. So kind of just having somebody go back and forth, letting the dispatchers do what they do best. Just works out. They, I think of, this wasn't an EOC activation thing, but several months ago, the ERs or the hospitals were so full, they wanted us to alternate where people were going, and so hospital staff volunteered to help and I'm like, just let the dispatchers do it. They can figure it out. They're all in the same room. They can alternate where people are going, so
let them do their job.
So it's changed a little bit over the years. We don't need a dispatcher in the EOC. It's right next door. We can communicate back and forth, but having a dispatch representative so we can communicate what's going on is helpful. And if the dispatchers need resources, they're just next door, and we can ask those representatives for those things.
How busy does the comm center get when, because again, as busy as we get, when we get a big storm and some of the blowdowns that have come through, and where you got I can remember being either on truck 3 or coming in on a reserve rig and on reserve 80 being out in Morningside.
All the
and
wires
just run
down
out.
calls.
Yeah, and that's just in town here. That doesn't include a storm system that came across, because Woodbury County is fairly big. So how crazy does that get upstate, for you guys out there?
It's usually crazier in the city just because I don't know, a wire down, a power line down in the county probably isn't as affecting as many people, or maybe the people aren't even aware of it because it's, on a rural intersection or road. But that's the other good thing is after we've had some of those, we've sat down with Mid-America and talked about if there's a better way, because I can remember we had one storm where literally you guys could not get, because we send the fire department to wires down because it's a hazard, and you guys can't leave that live wire and go to the next one until somebody gets there. And so had a lot of conversations with Mid-American about, how to kind of move through these faster because it gets
prioritize these stuff. Because I know
I remember laying cones out at one, going to another one, just to do something.
Stretching just stretching caution tape and hoping for the best.
Hoping that no one comes up and decides to get really
have to put so much stress on you too, because especially if other emergencies come in too. Now we have no fire rigs available, or we have no medic units available. Cops are all busy too. So then I can't imagine the frustration and the stress that you're like, okay, now if something really
and that's where we need we need you guys to give us direction. You know, the assistant chief needs to decide what's going to happen. I'm trying to remember the last. Oh, it was one of the big apartment fires, and actually.
It's probably
Ida.
I think it was the Ida apartments, and actually the fire marshal came in and started doing the recall for us.
Yeah.
So we didn't.
Yeah, that would have been.
Was there also? It was kind of a winter storm that night, right?
Yeah,
It was.
Okay.
snowing.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. So
temperature was perfect.
Yeah, it was like 30.
Perfect.
Oh,
It didn't
okay.
freeze on the
No,
turntable.
it was,
Okay.
it was nice that night. Just
Yeah.
nice, big old fat flake. It was actually kind of pretty.
It
It was
was.
very actually pretty
Yeah.
after. Yeah. Not pretty, but pretty.
But then,
Apartment
you know,
burned and
sometimes
back
we
on
just need direction on what, you know, tell us what you want us to do and what to do with the next calls, and, you know, only send ambulances on medical calls,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
no engines and things like that. So,
Yeah, it's been a few times where you hear that, you know, where we got it like two, either one really big structure fire, or like two, or the storms, especially the storms when they're going in, like they'll just say suspend EMS because we just running from call to call, and you got
well, and then
backlog of
storms, a
wires
lot of
down.
times, then it's setting off alarms.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
people's fire alarms or burglar alarms are going off because, you know, the wind and different things. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it can get crazy.
Yeah. Back to the hiring. Do you guys keep a hiring list, or do you just?
We do.
I mean, or do you? Is there? How long is your list good for?
So it's good for a year. Usually we exhaust the list before a year.
Before
So
a year.
just depending.
So do you
on,
guys post kind of like what we do? So like the same time every year, like we're taking applications, or is it like if you exhaust a list, you
then
test
we-
right away?
Yeah. So if we're getting close to either the list expiring or exhausting, then we'll start the process again. So we're not too delayed.
How many people do you try to put on a list? I mean, what, like, you know, do
You know, times have changed so much. When I started like 25 years ago, and we would have an opening, it would not be uncommon to get hundreds
Wow.
of applications. And I think this last time, we received like 48 applications, and only 12 of them showed up for the test.
Yeah.
So ideally, a list with at least 10 or more
Yeah.
would be nice, but
Yeah.
it's
And then after
yeah.
that 12 take the test, like how many do you lose through the process?
I think the last time we only lost maybe one or two.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But a big difference. Well, you know, they talk about for ours, you know, our job when, you know, used to get hundreds of people applying, you know, taking the test for the fire department stuff. And the last, I know, I mean, my list or our list was was an odd one, just because you had to have your EMT when you took the test. So it was
First year of that.
yeah. So it's 36
Yeah,
people.
they changed that again. Real
We had
quick.
36 to take the test in that room at the convention center.
That
They
would
were
have
going
been a
to
good list to get on.
It was. All you had to do, because they were taking the first top 50
Yeah.
after the written, all you had to do was pass the written, and you got to move on. So, but then after that, you know, but like our last, what did we have? 75 people take the last test or
Yeah,
something like that.
maybe.
You know, so I mean, yeah. So I mean, you see this, you see it everywhere. You know that it's just dwindling.
I remember that convention center second floor the room being packed. All the walls were pushed aside, and it was packed. And I got in there at like 19, and I'm like, what? Or 18.
It's
and I'm
intimidating.
Like, holy crap!
Yeah.
Yep.
Size
There's
yourself
grown
up
men,
against all these people.
Exactly.
grown ass men, and then
Yeah.
there, and I'm like,
There's
what am I
like-
doing?
Yeah.
But
Exactly. Yeah. So, so anything else you got, you know, for your family or anything? We kind of, you know, the podcast, when things get on the interwebs, you know, they live there forever and stuff. So is there anything, you know, anything you'd want to say to like leave a thing for your family or something to look back, or anything to be like, oh, you know, I was on that show one time. when we're famous, when Joe Rogan's having us on his show and stuff, we could be
No,
like,
I
you know,
don't think anything for my family. You know, I just
or your people that you work with.
You know, I work with amazing people, and they make me look good every day. You know, and they are dedicated. They, you know, they work long hours. You know, they're like you guys. You know, there's no Christmas with the family if you're working. So, you know, they work a lot of hours. They work crazy schedules. They work holidays, weekends. And they just get the job done. And I am extremely proud of the job that they do. You know, I might sit at home and see something on the news happen, you know, some big fire or some big accident, and I have zero concerns that they didn't do an amazing job. And they know that if it gets overwhelming, they can call me, and I'll be right there. So
Yeah.
I just have a lot of respect for everybody that I work with. So
That's great.
Awesome.
How many more years are we going to have Wendy at the
I
comm
don't
center?
know. I should probably stay like 10, but I don't know if I can make it that.
Yeah. It gets to a point where you're like, I'm still healthy, I still feel good, I can walk away. That's why I don't know. That's my aspect. Look at the job and stuff is, you still got your health and you can walk away. Then maybe you should.
And I think for the most part, we have elected officials that support what we do.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
sometimes it's hard. Every year I feel like we're expected to provide the same level of service with either less people or less budget or whatever. So it's a struggle. I get nobody wants their taxes raised, but 911 ain't charging for service. We're not making any money.
Right.
So it's one of those services that we need. And there's a lot of agencies that don't provide all the services that we do, that don't give people medical instructions over the phone. But that's the day and age that we live in, and that's the service that people expect. They expect to call 911 and somebody needs to tell them what to do, how to do CPR and those things. So we provide a high level of service to the community, and they expect that. So
Yes.
Do you have like a guilty pleasure first responder like show, like a cop show or a fire show or any of those like on TV that you're almost ashamed that you say you like watching, but when you watch it, you're
no,
like, that's
I always
all bullshit.
say like I'm the only person in the world who doesn't Netflix. I usually just watch like normal TV shows. So no, I mean I think I.
There's not a lot of TV shows that are like dispatchers,
No, there have been some, and there are a couple 911 shows on now that they're not terribly inaccurate, but I can't remember. There was the Halle Berry movie too. Did you guys ever see that?
I didn't
where
see
like
that
she
one, but
literally,
yes.
I think it was that movie where like she literally went like searching for a bad guy. Well, generally we don't do that.
That's always like CSI.
Yeah.
Like those people are definitely not out at crime scenes or pursuing bad guys.
Well, and then we get a lot of people that call that want us to fingerprint, and it's like, somebody broke into your car, you want it fingerprinted, and unfortunately it doesn't work quite like it does on TV, and they have to have prints. You got to have an idea who it is to know who to compare those
there's got to be a
fingerprints
record
to.
of somebody's fingerprints. It's not just like
The
everybody's.
Big Lebowski, when his car gets stolen and then it gets impounded and he's expecting them to do an investigation. He's like,
one of the all-time best movies ever made, Big Lebowski.
Yeah, so for real. All right, you guys got anything else?
No.
Any questions?
We appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks
This
for
has been
having
fun.
me.
We appreciate all that you do for us.
Yeah, pass it on to your folks.
I will.
Which
I will.
pass it on to like and subscribe.
Like,
Okay,
right.
it's a requirement now.
Subscription.
I did have one more question though, because we got to go back to Shipper's shirt that he wore, because there's significance to that shirt. It's pretty sweet. So, and you already said you're not a Star Wars fan, and we'll have a.
That's fine. You guys can talk off air about that.
Well, yeah, we'll correct Baker's mindset of that episode 3 is the best one. But anyways, Ghostbusters. You should watch Ghostbusters, fan of Ghostbusters.
Probably the original.
That's fine.
Okay, have you
That's
seen
totally fine.
the new one, the Ghostbusters Afterlife?
No.
You haven't seen that one. So
No.
so if you follow that storyline of Ghostbusters 2, skip that other one and then go right to the Afterlife, because it's the same storyline. That's that firehouse, and March 22nd the next one comes out in that storyline and stuff. But they're going back to New York, back to the old firehouse. So.
I got to give a shout out to my wife's cousin, Kandrin Stepanek, out in Brooklyn. He stopped at the firehouse and got me this one. So,
Is that where the original Ghostbusters was filmed?
Yep. They are back. They had vacated it, and that movie got made there and stuff, but they are back in there.
Yep, they're back.
Cool.
It's an active firehouse in New York. You can go there and stuff, and it's like one of those coolest like Lego sets I think I've ever seen.
Very cool.
Yes, very much.
Classic firehouse.
Okay. Well, I think that's all. We get a good time with Wendy. She, the time flew by and stuff. I don't think I'm worthy of dropping the tones. Ship, you want to drop them?
Let's drop them, Baker. Drop us the tones.
What's your emergency?
Hi there. Yes, I need some assistance. I just experienced a tragic coffee-related incident.
What happened?
Well, I was trying to enjoy my morning brew, but peacefully contemplating life's mysteries, when suddenly my tongue decided to challenge the coffee to a duel.
A duel?
Yes. It's like a scene from a Wild West movie, but with hot liquid instead of guns. Long story short, my tongue got burned in the crossfire.
I'm sorry to hear that. Have you tried any first aid measures?
Yes. I've been sticking my tongue in the freezer like it's auditioning for a role in a popsicle commercial, but it's not helping much.
Understandable. We'll send help right away. In the meantime, avoid anything too hot or spicy.
Thank you. And if you happen to have any spare ice cream cones laying around the dispatch center, feel free to send them along with the paramedics.
We'll see what we can do. Hang tight.